Hey, hey, Blue Table fans! Yeah! All right, that's lower enthusiasm level than normal. You know, some people wear headphones while watching these. All right, so here's the deal. I've been playing Beastmen, or Beasts of Chaos, as they're now called. I got an army in on trade. I'm painting it up and gonna put it on the block. And so first off, the trade program. If you got a lot of useless models laying around, get in touch. So how it works is you'll send me the list and I'll make you 4 offers. A web store credit for trade, a matched service credit, a service credit for assembly and painting, and cash or a like a gift certificate online. To me, it's the same thing. It costs the same amount. So, and if I gave you, say, a $100 certificate, that would buy, because it would be at on a web store, excuse me, like an internet store that gave a discount, you'd actually get a higher retail value than the actual $100. So let's talk about Beasts of Chaos. Oh, I'll also do, what's that called? Commissioned. So you can send me the army, we'll make arrangements, I'll do repairs, take pictures of it, video of it, sell it, and then you get your money when it sells. So that's another thing too. And yeah, well, I've got the space and the know-how for it. And of course my risk is that it might not sell even after I put in that effort on it. But you know, everything adds up in the end. All right, guys, so first off, the Beasts of Chaos book came out, I do believe, right around last September or October. This is for Age of Sigmar. I love Age of Sigmar. I've always been behind it. Warhammer Fantasy was just getting bogged down. It was a great game. I love it. I have great memories of it. Immensely good memories of it. All the way back to 98, I want to say. I owned a game shop in Southern Oregon, and I had a friend of mine, this is a story I tell my boys, and we used to play, we had like a rivalry going. So when I first started playing Warhammer Fantasy, late 90s, I played the High Elves. And you may remember the old plastics had like a leaf shape, a 5-pointed star thing on their helmet. And I decided instead of blue, I was going to make mine green. So I painted the star-shaped green, and it was reminiscent of a marijuana leaf. And so my buddies called them the High Elves. So that was the faction I picked, and I pretty much lost all the time. And it became widely accepted in our growing group. It grew to about 13 people getting together regularly. And which, by the way, that's a pretty good group to be coming out every week. And so one day I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to sell. I sold them all for like 50 bucks. Just didn't even want to see them anymore. So a friend of mine bought them, and he took it seriously. He kept a battle journal, like why he thought he lost, what units he thought were really strong. He paid attention, and he started winning every game. He just started just like pummeling everybody. And with the exact same army, no changes except attitude and, of course, the level of play. And it became widely accepted that High Elves were overpowered. So you just gotta factor in skill. And this is a story that I've told my boys, and they've really taken it to heart. My 13-year-old son, Griffin, he's really gotten into it. And we've been spending a lot of time painting and playing and taking care of the shop. And for once well, he came up to me and he said, Dad, for the first time, I'm feeling very optimistic about the future. And this is a child that's had, like, he struggled with severe anxiety and other stuff. And he just, you know, he feels like he's painting figures, he's assembling figures, he's converting figures, and he feels like this is something that he could do. And that's like really neat. I had this amazing dad experience. All right. So first off, Beasts of Chaos is divided into 3 different main sub-factions. First off, you've got, let me just see if I can find, because who wants to see my face the whole time? Oh, but you're not. You're listening to this like the radio, right? So the first faction is what you'd call the Brayherds, which is your standard beastmen. And it's important to note that Tusk-Gore chariots are Brayherd. So then you've got the Minotaurs, and they are called Warherd. And that also includes the Gorgons. I think there's a picture of one in here. I don't know. Oh, yeah, this guy here. The Cygors and Gorgons, those are Warherd. So the big guys. And then you've got what's called Thunderscorn, which is the basically just 2 types of units. You've got Dragon Ogres and the Shaggoths, who are wizards in this version. And that's actually an army that I'd like to play. It's got great figures in it, but probably a little one-dimensional. You know, I can't find any pictures of them. I actually have some painted up. So these are the new Dragon Ogres they came up with. The Shaggoth is like, he's like, that model's so old. But Mierce Miniatures, M-I-E-R-C-E, they make great alternatives to all this stuff. And I gotta tell you, I would die and go to heaven if I got a big old wad of Mierce Miniatures. I want everything they make. Like, their models are so good. And they've got like hippopotamus men, camel men, these avian looking guys, so many cool things. And but they are overseas, and they charge what they're worth. And good for them. I hope Mierce Miniatures is doing good. I really hope you guys. And by the way, get in touch with me. If you're an owner or a manager out there, get in touch with me for some brag for swag. Like, I don't know what I can do, but I would love to be in bed with Mierce Miniatures. Yeah, I'd pull the covers all the way up. So, okay, and there is a 4th faction, and that's the Tzeentch guys, which are the Zongors. And they are, you got guys on discs, bows, wizards, and they're supposedly really good. You see them in a lot of lists. I saw a Beasts of Chaos army that took a major Australian tournament. I was like, hey, awesome, Beasts of Chaos, kind of the underdogs, right? No, he was using massive units of Zongor, what are they called, the bow guys? I should know this. I should know this offhand. Skyfires. Yeah, so he was using he was using 2 units of 9 Skyfires, and that's, by the way, that's 1,200 points out of the 2,000. But let me tell you, those guys are going to get the job done. I'm looking for a picture of them that I can show you. The Skyfires, they really get the job done. Here's your Zongors. And yeah, maybe I can hold it still for a second. And I'd love to do an army of them, but I don't know, I don't have the energy after. I want to try something different. So one thing I did think of for Skyfires was making winged minotaurs with bows. That would be a great, that'd be a great model for those. And not too many more points, actually. All right, so I've played 7 games. I had 5 losses, wretched ones too, like tabled by turn 2 or 3. Then I turned it around. I started trying some different things, really digging deep, taking my own advice, read the High Elf story. And I got a tie, which I think was on camera. I think it was the search for the bitter end on our YouTube channel. And then I think I got a win. We only got to play 2 turns, but we kind of like predicted the game. So that's a toughie. I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. So, and all of these against my 2 sons. And they're no slouches. These 2 boys are paying attention. So anyway, I want to give my comments on the Beasts. If you're making a Beasts of Chaos army, first off, I'm only speaking to doing a Brayherd focused army. And I'm going to give you sort of a unit by unit on them, on the units that I tend to use. So first is the Beast Lord. Oh, and by the way, get these reference cards. They're like 20 bucks. Like they're finding ways to make you have to buy more things to start in on a faction. Like it used to be about your army book for 25 bucks, then you started buying your models. That was it. And a core book, obviously. And now it's like, you gotta buy the book. And they have dice, specialty dice for that faction, which you don't need. And they have the reference cards, which you don't need, but you really should have. They're great. Like this is way better than flipping through your book because it's so cumbersome. They tend to, like, they eat up the table, but you can just have this stack of reference cards like flashcards, and it's great. Now the Beast Lord, I am not a fan. He clocks in at 90 points, and he's got 6 attacks, 3/3, -1, 1 damage. He's not putting out a lot of damage. And his command ability is that you can use this command ability when he kills an enemy model. And if he does it and he spends the command point, then he emits a radius of 18 inches. Every friendly Brayherd unit within the 18 inches, so it's already limited, just Brayherd units that are wholly within. So the radius is actually pretty big. It's 3 feet wide. But you have to be that unit. If one guy is out, they don't get the bonus. And you get to re-roll hit rolls, I do think it is. Oh, wound rolls. The problem is, let's say, and this happened in my last game, the Beast Lord charges in, and then a unit of guys charges in, and I had 30 Bestigors making contact. Well, the problem is, to activate his ability, he has to kill somebody in close combat. And if he does, then you gotta activate him first. That's the problem. So his ability isn't that great. If he kills a hero, you re-roll wound and hit rolls. You can re-roll failed wound rolls against heroes, but again, he only does 1 damage. And once you parse it out, he's only dealing 3 points of damage. He's not great. I'm super unimpressed with the Beast Lord. Great Bray Shaman. Now in the old book you had a Bray Shaman and a Great Bray Shaman. This one only has this. He's a level 1 wizard, 1 spell. And these guys are awesome. Worth their weight in gold. Every game I get great performance out of these Bray Shamans, and here's why. First off, they're pretty cheap for wizards. They're 100 points. And let me tell you, you're going to do some damage. They're terrible in close combat, obviously. 6-up save, 5 wounds. They're not great that way, obviously. However, they do have a power called Infuse with Bestial Vigor. And it means, so at the start of the movement phase, all Brayherd units within 12 inches of him get +3 to their move characteristic. This isn't a command ability. It just happens. So that's great. They have this really wonderful passive ability that meshes well with the army. And you might think, well, you want to keep your wizards back. No, the Bray Shamans actually kind of do well. It's just skulking around the edges. And they have Devolve, which is a really weird spell that basically it makes an enemy unit move towards your closest unit to them, kind of like moving up to them. And you can actually draw them into close combat that way. They don't have to stop beyond the 3-inch respect bubble. You can actually bring them in. And so, right there, you have great tactical abilities. Now, if you go into the Army book, again, I'm only talking about Brayherd stuff this time. If you go into the Army book and you look at their spells, I've found that really the Bray Shamans are just, they just deal damage. And I usually hang one around the Herdstone to get them primordial call points, which I'm going to talk more about in just a little bit. So I usually get Viletide, which deals mortal wounds within 6 inches or 12 inches. You got to be super close, and you got to be within that range within, like during the hero phase. So you can't just move up and do it. But it can do D6 mortal wounds, which is just great. So take that, and you can have lots of shenanigans with Devolve, and also because if you use Ambush, you're going to be all around the edges of the board. So you can, like, Devolve can be, and by the way, I've never used it, but there it is. And I like Vicious Stranglethorns, which does D3 mortal wounds to units within next to a terrain feature. And you can really get people with that. You can get, like, you can nail like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 units with that. And all of a sudden you're racking up 8 mortal wounds from a spell. Granted, it's 7. And then they've got some other spells that are really kind of situational. So those two, Viletide and Vicious Stranglethorns, those are kind of your workhorse spells for your Bray Shamans. And then they provide, of course, that sort of, what's it called? Not dispelling, it's unbinding. So they can put the dampener on enemy wizards. So love great Bray Shamans. Always take 1. Probably you're going to want 2 in your army. Ungor Raiders. All right, so you got Ungors on the lowest, then Gors, then Bestigors. Now the Ungors have 2 different types. There's regular Ungors that just have spears, and they cost 6 points, 5 with a discount, and for max herd size. In fact, let's take a look at the points cost for that one. I want to make sure I'm not steering you wrong. Yeah, 5 points at the discounted rate for a unit of 40 of them. And so I only have 30 Ungor Raiders, and I love them. These guys, they're fantastic. Now the Raiders who have bows, they have 18-inch range, and let me tell you, these guys are awesome. They have a scouting ability. So at the beginning, before anybody moves, they can go 6 inches. And that you can take objectives that way. You can just get up there, and now you've got 10 bodies standing next to an objective. I say fantastic. They can't run with that if you read the description. Let's see, Brayhorn, run. Oh, they can run and shoot. Oh, I didn't know that. Fantastic. I haven't been doing that. And then basically their bow is very basic. 4/4, no rend, 1 damage. In melee, they're terrible. They literally have a jagged rock is their weapon. That's a 5-up, 5-up, 1 damage. Like the worst it gets in this game. These guys are not meant for close combat, but you can. There's something your opponent has to contend with, and that's with any army. You have to think, well, how does this army win? What is the mechanic of this army? And the mechanic of a Beastman army is loads and loads of beast bodies. Like you just gotta get those bodies on the board. And I'm gonna talk about that in a minute too. So love Ungor Raiders. Now my favorite, Bestigors. Oh man. These guys clock in at 12 points each. And they are the models are just fantastic. Oh my gosh. Can I show you some of my conversions and stuff? So, yeah, this is great. Let me just get my champs out here. So this is what a regular Bestigor looks like. There he is. You kind of like, I don't know if it's focused. It's not focusing very well on him. I think it doesn't see it. Let's see if I put it in front of my hand if it'll do it better. Yeah, there you go. So that's your Bestigor. They have these great horns, very, very good aesthetic there. Here's the champ. Now this is a converted one. And I gave him a Chaos Axe from the new Khorne guys. And then I just gave him a regular hand like he was kind of pointing, you know. And that's actually from an Adonith Deepkin kit, like a bow guy. So that conversion is really good. That's just a champion. And then I gave this guy some Tzeentch horns. And he's a lot of fun. And then my banner, I've got sort of a dark purple in with my army, and I think it works well with the red skin, red, black, and then the bone is like really sort of white, so it's got that red, black, white combo. And then I've got the purple sort of subtly worked in, and that really enriches that red color, which isn't a true red. It's a brick red called Cavalry Brown in Vallejo. So I got a lot going on there. Oh, and I may as well show you this. You'll always have some spawn kicking around, like things can turn into spawns. So I got this from, I want to say Zombicide, Black Plague. So this weird minotaur. So he's being turned back into a human, which is the worst curse that one of these guys could have. And I just ripped nothing to write home about on the paint job here. I get it. All right, so Bestigors are awesome. They are 12 points, and they can go down to, hold on, let me check the profile. Make sure. Yeah, they can go down to 10 points if you do a max herd size of 30, which I do. I have 30 guys. I used to run them in 10s to kind of like pester other units, and I don't know if that's the best result. Not so sure about that. It's a tough call. If I had my way, unlimited resources, which I do in my fantasy world, I'd run 90. I'd run 30, 30, 30, and I would just run them up the board and just choke the board with beast bodies, because these guys, they get, so basically max size puts them at 10 points. That puts them as kind of like the cheapest average units of all the races. Like all the different demon types, they cost 10 points each. A lot of the free guild guys, even the basic empire guys, 10 points each. Of course, these guys are 12-10 instead of 10-9 like a lot of things are. And oh, I didn't even turn on the lights. That's not good. Well, it's got pretty good natural light this time of day. And, oh, it's springtime in Utah, by the way. So nice. 2 attacks each, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, 1 rend, 1 damage. That's a great profile, guys. And on the charge, they get +1 attack. So they hit hard. They can run and charge from their horn, like the other guys, other Gores can. And the banner gives them a +1 inch move, +1 inch run, +1 inch pile in, which is a huge deal. These guys are bred for combat. They hit hard, man. They really pack a wallop. 2 attacks. Jeez. And against enemy units with 10 or more models, they get +1 to hit and reroll hit rolls of 1 if they're going against order. And so Bestigors, they're my favorite. And if you have a Beast Lord or a Bray Shaman as your general, these guys are battle line. So you can just have and dispense with the Gores. And I'm going to talk to you about the Gores in a minute. Yeah, in fact, the Gores are up next. So here's your Gores. And I got to tell you, I'm not very excited about these guys. They clock at 8, 7 at max herd of 30. So, they're really just useful as bodies. I'm not a big fan of the Gores. I wish they wouldn't make you take the Gores. They do, a lot of the formations require Gores. I'm going to have to get like, if I'm going to ramp up this army, which I'm like, oh man, I kind of want to just play it the way it is. Instead of like adding a bunch of stuff. The Gores, man, they've got the run and charge thing from the horn. They got the +1 run and pile in from their banner, just like the Bestigors. But they have 1 attack, 4/4, 1 damage. Their profile is just so weak with a 5-up save, and it just, I don't know. You get a reroll 1s with the Gore blades, but it's not that big a deal because you're only making 1 attack. So I just wish they were better. And they get 1 extra attack if their enemy has 20 or more models. But it's rare that you go up against that. But it could help. Alright, so Gores, not that great. In fact, and let's stop just for a second and switch gears and go to the War Scrolls. So the Beastmen get 4 war scrolls. Now, one of them is the Minotaur one, where you're running Warherd guys, and another one is the Thunderscorn one, where you're running Thunderscorn guys. So for a Brayherd general, you've only got 2 war scrolls. So let me tell you what they are. Desolating Beast Herd. Now, this one has a lot of flexibility. You can get your 1-drop off of this. A 1-drop means this, that you can deploy a whole battalion as one choice. So you'd say, okay, it's your turn to put down a model. Your opponent puts down a unit. Then you're like, okay, I'll put down a unit. I'll put down my entire battalion. Now you might think, well, why would you want to put down a whole thing and then, you know, because then your opponent can see where all your stuff is. And it's because in Age of Sigmar, you get to go first if you finish deploying first. It's not a roll. It's not a bonus to your roll. You just get to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So dropping your whole thing in one deal and getting that first turn, guys, it's a huge deal, especially since you can hide well over half your points in ambush. Of course, that's tougher because you don't necessarily get that first turn charge. Because with the run and charge thing, it's kind of a big deal for them. And we're going to talk about Slaanesh in a while. Jeez, okay. So with this one, you get, if you roll a 6 to hit, you get 2 hits instead of 1. And for units that are all the way in your opponent's territory. It's situational, but it also mixes well with the ambush ability. So the ambush ability is, by the way, not as great as a lot of other armies. So it goes like this. At the end of your first movement phase, anything held in reserve in ambush can come in wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the board and more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Now, what I've noticed is obviously your opponent, knowing that you're doing this, especially if you 1-drop and then he gets to deploy all his guys, he can just put some pesky units in the back and just keep you from being there, sort of push you off the edge. It's hard. Like you can squeak in those units, and you can definitely bring them in on the side, which really helps. And your opponent, he doesn't know where. You can just decide afterwards where you're going to put them. The problem is they're now 9 inches away, and you need a 9 for a charge. And there's really only 2 ways to get around it. One is with one of the War Scrolls, which we'll talk about in a minute, that gives you +1 to your charge. You still need an 8, so you got to kind of load up. Like I played a 2,000 point game. I had 17 units, and of course, 9 of them had to be on the board. 8 of them were in ambush, and out of those, like I got super lucky. Out of the 8, 6 of them made their charges, which was a huge deal. So in this one, you need minimum of 1 unit of Bestigors, a Bray Shaman, Beast Lord, or Doombowl, and minimum 1 unit of Gors or Tuskgor Chariots, minimum 1 Bestigors, and then 2 units of Ungors or Ungor Raiders. So, and you can put quite a few units in this. I don't know if you get a 2,000 point army into this. Now, Marauding Brayherd, this is where it's at. It only has one downside, which is it requires minimum 3 units of Gors. Ah, with the Gors, jeez. Like, they're not that great, but they are beast bodies. They're pretty cheap at 8 or 7 with the mass discount. And the other thing is you've got to bring 4 to 12 units of Ungors or Centaurs. And just, oh man, they're just... Ungors, they're great, but yeah, actually you could bring 4 units of those pretty easy in a 2,000 point army, and they get +1 to their charge the turn they appear, that were set up on the battlefield during the same turn, and that's ambush. Okay, so yeah, Marauding Brayherd. All right, let's talk about Centaurs. First off, the models for these are so old. Oh my gosh. I would use Wood Elf or Dark Elf horses. I have a bunch of them, so I'm going to try and use Ungor bodies and turn them into Centaurs. But the models are kind of old. They're not great. But Centaurs, they are pretty awesome. Let me tell you what you get. First off, let's see here. They are 80 points for 5, so they're only 16 points. So it's the same as 2 Gores. Now, in Age of Sigmar, there's only 2 defensive traits, and that's your armor save and your number of wounds. Wounds is now kind of like toughness. And Centaurs have, for 16 points, they got 2 wounds and a 5-up save. It's not great, but they are beast bodied. They cost the same as 2 Gores. And they have the same defensive ability. So they have the same armor, and they bring 2 wounds. So not bad. Like, if I had a choice between 20 Gores or 10 Centaurs, I'd take the Centaurs every time. Like, the only problem is, of course, converting up the models, because they will, in terms of money, they will cost more. Centaurs, yeah, max unit size 20, no discount. So, Centaurs do have a slightly better attack profile. So you got to think, 2 Gores or 1 Centaur. So the 2 Gores, they both have 2 wounds combined, and they both have a 5-up save. So there's that. But the Centaurs have a 14-inch movement. Oh man, these guys are smoking fast. So fast. Oh my gosh. They can, and they have the run and charge thing. And they have the extra 1-inch run and pile in too. So they're fast, guys. D6 plus 1, so 4 or 5 inches, plus the 14 inches. That's a first turn charge. That, like, they got movement, they don't even need it. And they're Brayherd, so the shaman can infuse them with that extra 3 inches of movement if you need it. So they can go pretty far. How far would that be? That would be 18 inches, 21 inches plus the charge move. These guys can get where they're needed. And then they just have charging spear, reroll failed wound rolls, which can be really good, I actually think. Although they're only 4-up, 4-up. They get a slight advantage over the Gores because each of them brings 2 clawed forelimbs at a 5-up, 5-up, 1 damage. It's not that big a deal, but it is a slight edge, like in terms of Centaur versus regular Gore. So Centaurs are the like centaurs. That's how they get them. Tuskgore chariots. Okay, so I want to talk about some of these other guys. First off, the Tuskgore chariot model is terrible. Oh my gosh, it's an embarrassment to the Games Workshop site. But it's in the book. It's kind of a thing they had to have. They couldn't redo it. Who's going to really buy Tuskgore chariots? And there it is. If you go to the website, it doesn't even have an oval base in it. It has a square base. I think it's still made out of resin too. Oh, and the model, oh, it's just, oh, it's so bad. So here's what you're going to want to do. I'll be right back.